I was watering the tomatoes in my front garden when the moving truck pulled up. Not my moving truck. Someone else's. I stood there with the hose still running, watching these strangers start unloading boxes into my home. My home. The house where I've lived for 42 years. The house where I raised my daughter, Ellen. The house that still smells like my late husband's cologne in the morning when the sun hits the living room just right. My name is Dorothy, and I'm 72 years old, and I was standing in my garden watching my life get rearranged by people I've never met. I turned off the hose. My hands were shaking. I walked up to the moving company supervisor, a young man in a reflective vest, and I said, "I think you have the wrong address." He looked at his clipboard and he read back to me, 1247 Maple Street, owned by Ellen Richardson. Ellen Richardson is my daughter, and she does not own this house. I do, or at least I thought I did. I called her right then. My hands were still shaking as I dialed her number. She answered on the third ring, and her voice had that tone, the one that meant she was busy, that I was interrupting something important. "Mom," she said, not quite as a greeting but as a question, like she was already preparing to explain why she couldn't talk. "There's a moving truck in my driveway," I said. My voice was steady, which surprised me. I'd expected it to break. "Why is there a moving truck at my house?" There was a pause. The kind of pause that tells you someone is about to say something they've been rehearsing for a while. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something. But not on the phone. Can you come to the city? Can you come today?" "Ellen, what is happening? Why is there a moving truck?" "Mom, please. Just come. I'll explain everything. But I need to explain it in person." I got into my car and I drove to the city in silence. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't call anyone. I just drove, and I thought about what it meant that my daughter was asking me to come see her instead of coming to see me. I thought about what it meant that she'd known this was happening and hadn't told me. I thought about all the ways that a mother can be kept in the dark by her own child. Ellen lives in a high-rise apartment in the downtown area. Her place is all glass and steel and modern furniture that doesn't look comfortable. I've always hated it. It feels cold to me. Like a place where nobody actually lives, just a place where people exist temporarily before moving on to somewhere else. She was waiting for me at her door. She looked nervous. She had her arms crossed in front of her, and she was doing that thing where she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. That thing that meant she'd done something she knew I wouldn't like.
"Hi, Mom," she said.
And the way she said it, it was like she was trying to ease into something. Like she was trying to soften me up before delivering bad news. "Ellen, what's going on?" I asked. I was still standing in the doorway. I wasn't ready to come in yet. She took a deep breath. "Let's sit down. Let me explain." We sat on her uncomfortable modern furniture, and she told me that I needed to trust her. She told me that she'd been talking to a financial advisor, and he'd recommended that we sell my house. She told me that the real estate market was good right now, that it was the perfect time to sell, that we could get a really good price. "We?" I asked. "Ellen, why would you use the word we?" "Because I've been helping you manage your finances, Mom."
"You asked me to."
"I asked you to help me with my taxes and my insurance. I didn't ask you to sell my house." "I know, but..." "Ellen, did you sell my house?" I interrupted her. I needed to hear her say it. I needed to hear my daughter admit that she had taken something that was mine and sold it without asking me. "Yes," she said quietly. "I sold it. But Mom, listen. We got a really good price. We're going to split the proceeds. You'll have enough money to retire comfortably. You won't have to worry about property taxes or maintenance or any of it. You can move in here with me, or you can move somewhere smaller, or..." "You sold my house," I said again. I wasn't asking this time. I was stating it. I was trying to make it real. I was trying to understand how my daughter could do this to me. "Yes," Ellen said. "But it was the right decision. Mom, you're getting older. You can't live alone in that big house anymore. You need to be somewhere that's easier for you. Somewhere where people can help you." I looked at my daughter, and I felt something inside me break. Not violently. Not with anger. Just quietly.
Just the sound of trust breaking.
"Ellen," I said, "whose name is on the deed to that house?" She was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence, I understood that she didn't know. She'd sold a house without checking whose name was actually on the deed. Mine, I said. My name is on the deed. I never took it off. Your father's name is there too, but since he died, it's just me. It's always just been me. Ellen's face went pale. Mom, I thought. You thought I was the kind of mother who would just give you control of my property without telling me? You thought you could just sell my house and I would say, thank you? No. Have you ever felt unwanted in your own family? Tap that heart symbol so I know I'm not alone. Because that's what this felt like. This felt like my daughter had looked at her mother and thought, I don't need to ask her. I don't need to respect her. I can just take what's hers because it's for her own good. This felt like being erased from my own life. How did you sell the house if my name is on the deed? I asked. Ellen's voice got very small. I forged your signature, she said. I forged your signature on all the papers. I stood up. I couldn't sit down anymore. I had to move. I walked to her window, and I looked out at the city, and I tried to understand what my daughter had just told me. She had forged my signature. She had sold my house. She had taken the one place in the world that belonged entirely to me, and she had sold it. Why? I asked. I didn't turn around. I couldn't look at her while I asked this. Because I needed the money, Ellen said. I've been struggling. My business isn't doing as well as I said it was. My divorce is costing me more than I thought. And I knew that you were worried about money, and I thought if we sold the house and you moved in with me, I could help us both. I could give you some of the money and keep some for myself. So you stole from me, I said quietly. I didn't steal. It's half your house. You have half the money. That's not stealing. You forged my signature, Ellen. That's not half of anything. That's theft. She started crying then. Real tears, not the tears of someone who's sorry, but the tears of someone who's been caught. And I realized something. I realized that my daughter had never actually thought about how this would hurt me. She'd only thought about her own problems. She'd only thought about her own needs. And she'd decided that my house was the solution to those problems. I turned to look at her, and I said, I'm going to need a lawyer. Mom, please don't do this. Please don't involve lawyers. We're family. We can work this out. You forged my signature, Ellen. That's a crime. We can't work that out over coffee. If this moment breaks your heart too, just hit like, so she knows she's not forgotten. Because this is the moment that will define everything that comes next. This is the moment when I realized that my daughter didn't respect me. This is the moment when I understood that I had to fight for something that should have been mine to begin with. I left her apartment. I drove back to my house, or what used to be my house, and I found the new owners unloading their things. The moving truck was still there. They'd gotten this beautiful home that my husband and I had built from nothing. They'd gotten the house where I'd learned to live as a widow. They'd gotten my life, essentially, and they didn't even know it had been stolen. I called a lawyer that night. His name was James, and he came highly recommended by Ruth, my best friend of 40 years. When I explained what had happened, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Dorothy, do you understand what this means? No, I said. Tell me. It means that the sale was fraudulent. It means that your daughter committed multiple crimes. It means that the house shouldn't have been sold at all because she didn't have the authority to sell it. Your name was on that deed. She couldn't transfer what wasn't hers to transfer. My heart started beating faster. So, what happens now? Now, James said, we file a suit. We file a legal challenge to the sale. We prove that your signature was forged. And we get your house back. Or, I asked, or we sue for damages. Your daughter is going to have to answer for what she's done. And the new owners of your house are going to find out that they don't actually own it. That night, I sat in my living room, the room that might not be my room much longer, and I looked at the photographs on the walls. Pictures of Ellen as a baby. Pictures of her graduation. Pictures of her wedding. Pictures of all the moments when I thought we had a relationship built on love and trust. But now I understand something different. Now I understand that all of those moments were me loving her and her taking that love and assuming I would give her anything. That I wouldn't question her. that I wouldn't hold her accountable, that I would just accept what she did because she was my daughter and I was supposed to be forgiving. Sometimes silence hurts more than words. Comment true if you've ever felt that pain. Because the silence after Ellen told me what she'd done, that silence was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. It was the sound of a daughter not even bothering to apologize, not even bothering to ask for forgiveness, just assuming that I would understand, that I would accept it, that I was supposed to take this lying down. I called James back the next morning. I told him to file whatever he needed to file. I told him to fight for my house. I told him that I wasn't going to let my daughter or anyone else take what was mine without a fight. "Are you sure?" James asked. "Because once we start this, there's no going back. You understand that you're going to have to go to court. You're going to have to face your daughter. You're going to have to prove that she committed fraud." "I'm sure," I said. "Because if I don't do this now, if I don't stand up for myself, then I'm telling my daughter that it's okay. I'm telling her that she can take from me, and I'll just accept it. And I won't do that. I won't teach her that lesson. Not anymore." But what I didn't know then was that this fight was going to reveal something even bigger. This fight was going to show me that Ellen's betrayal ran far deeper than just selling a house. This fight was going to change everything I thought I knew about my relationship with my daughter. Grandmas deserve love, not loneliness. Share this if you agree. Because I was about to discover that I wasn't just fighting for my house. I was fighting for my right to be respected. I was fighting for my right to not be used. I was fighting for my right to matter. And that fight was going to cost me more than I ever expected. I want to take you back to something. Back to a time when Ellen and I were close. Back to a time when I believed that a mother's love could overcome anything. I want to show you the woman I was before I understood that love doesn't always protect you from the people you love. Ellen was born on a Tuesday in March. I remember the hospital room smelled like bleach and hope. I remember holding her for the first time and thinking that I would do anything for this child. Absolutely anything. And I meant it. I spent the next 40 years proving that I meant it. Ellen's father, my husband Thomas, was a good man. He worked construction. He built things with his hands. He came home exhausted every day, covered in dust and sweat, and he would still have energy to play with Ellen, to lift her onto his shoulders, to teach her how to ride a bicycle. We weren't rich. We lived paycheck to paycheck. The house that Ellen sold, that was our dream. We saved for years to put a down payment on it. I took extra shifts at the hospital where I worked as a nurse. I gave up vacations and new clothes and things I wanted because Ellen's education mattered more. Her future mattered more. When Ellen was 16, she started changing. Not in the way that all teenagers change, but in a more profound way. She started looking at the things we had and deciding they weren't enough. She started looking at other families' homes and asking why we couldn't have those things. She started looking at me like I was the problem, like my choices to be a nurse instead of a doctor, to live modestly instead of extravagantly, to choose stability over ambition, like those choices had somehow failed her. I remember a dinner when she was 17. We were eating together, just the three of us, and she said, "Why did you never want more, Mom? Why did you just settle for this?" Thomas put down his fork. He looked at Ellen and he said, "Ellen, your mother gave up more than you'll ever understand so that you could have a safe home and a good education. Don't you ever stand in front of her and tell her that what she built isn't enough." Ellen looked at me with something I couldn't quite name. Not anger, exactly, but something like resentment, something like disappointment. And I realized then that my daughter didn't understand sacrifice, that she didn't understand that sometimes what you have is enough because you fought hard for it. Thomas died when Ellen was 25. He had a heart attack while he was working on a job site. I remember the call. I remember driving to the hospital in a daze. I remember holding his hand while he told me he loved me, and then I remember him just being gone.
No goodbye.
No warning.
Just gone.
After he died, I thought Ellen would need me. I thought we would grieve together. I thought my daughter would finally understand that the things that mattered weren't the things you owned, but the people you had in your life. But Ellen had other ideas. 2 weeks after the funeral, Ellen came to me and said she wanted to refinance the house. She said that the market was good, that we could get better terms, that it would help our financial situation. She asked me to sign the papers. I was still in shock from losing Thomas. I was still barely functioning. But Ellen seemed so certain that this was the right thing to do. So I signed. What I didn't understand then was that Ellen had put her name on the deed, that she'd essentially stolen a stake in the house that Thomas and I had built together. I didn't find out until months later, when I tried to refinance for real, and the bank told me that there were 2 names on the deed now. Mine and hers. I confronted her about it. I asked her why she'd done it without telling me. She said it was just in case something happened to me. She said she wanted to protect her inheritance. She said I was being ungrateful for what she was trying to do. I let it go. I was grieving. I was exhausted. I was a widow trying to figure out how to live in a house that suddenly felt too big and too quiet. And my daughter was using my grief against me. Ellen started dating a man named Michael about 5 years after Thomas died. Michael was handsome in that way that men are when they're only handsome on the surface. He was charming. He was smooth. He was always talking about money and investments and opportunities. And I watched my daughter fall for him completely. Michael would come over for Sunday dinners, and I would make the meals that Ellen loved. The same meals I'd made when Thomas was alive. And Michael would eat them and then talk about how much better restaurants in the city made food. He would look around my house and ask why we didn't have granite countertops or marble bathrooms. He would make Ellen feel like what we had wasn't good enough. I could see it happening. I could see my daughter slowly becoming ashamed of her mother, becoming ashamed of the house, becoming ashamed of the life that her parents had built for her. One afternoon, I overheard Ellen and Michael talking in my living room. They didn't know I was listening. Ellen said something about the house, and Michael said, "Your mother won't live forever. When she's gone, this will be yours. It's worth at least $1 million now. Maybe more." I stood in the kitchen, unable to move, unable to think. My own daughter's boyfriend was already calculating how much my death would be worth to her. Ellen married Michael 2 years later. I went to the wedding and I smiled, and I gave a toast about how much I loved my daughter and how I hoped she'd found happiness. But inside, I was breaking. Inside, I was understanding that my daughter had chosen someone who made her see me not as her mother, but as an obstacle to wealth. If you've ever given everything to your family and still felt invisible, tap heart symbol, so I know you exist. Because that's what I was becoming. I was becoming invisible. Not because I was old or because I'd stepped back from my daughter's life, but because my daughter had learned to look through me, to see past me, to see only what I owned. After she married Michael, Ellen's visits became less frequent. She called less often. When she did come to the house, it was always with some excuse. Her business wasn't doing well. She and Michael were having financial troubles. They'd made some investments that hadn't paid off. She needed advice. She needed help. She needed me to loan her money. And I did.
Of course I did.
I was her mother. When my daughter came to me in distress, I helped. I gave her money. I gave her advice. I gave her everything I had, because that's what mothers do. But I was watching her slowly become someone I didn't recognize. I was watching her resent me for the things I couldn't give her. I was watching her calculate my worth based on what she could take from me. About a year before Ellen sold the house, I was in the kitchen when my phone rang. It was my friend Ruth. She said, "Dorothy, I need to tell you something. I saw Ellen in the city with Michael. They were looking at houses. Really expensive houses. And Ellen was saying something about how if her mother would just cooperate, they could finally afford the lifestyle they wanted." I didn't ask Ruth what she meant by cooperate. I already knew. I already understood. My daughter was planning something, and it involved me. Ruth came over that night. We sat in my kitchen, drinking tea, and she said, "Dorothy, I'm worried about you. I'm worried that your daughter is going to hurt you." "Ellen would never hurt me," I said, but even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Ellen had already hurt me. She'd hurt me the first time she looked at her mother and decided that I wasn't enough. The first time she let a man tell her that the things I'd built for her were inferior. The first time she calculated my worth in dollars instead of love. Maybe not intentionally, Ruth said gently. But sometimes the people who love us hurt us in ways that are hard to forgive. Sometimes the ones we love most are the ones who break us. Comment true if you understand that pain. Because that's exactly what was happening. The person I loved most in this world was planning to break me. And I was spending my last days before that break, trying to pretend it wasn't coming. Ellen started calling more frequently. She wanted to come to the house and help me organize my finances. She wanted to talk about my future and what would happen to the house when I was gone. She started talking to me like I was already dead, like I was already a problem to be managed. I gave her power of attorney. I did this because I loved her. I did this because she asked me to, and I thought she was trying to take care of me. I thought she was being a good daughter. What I didn't understand was that I was giving my daughter the legal ability to do whatever she wanted with my assets. Then one day, Ellen came to me and said she wanted to take a family vacation.
She wanted us to go away for a week.
She said it would be good for me, that I needed to get away from the house, that I needed a break. I asked her when she was thinking.
She said next month. I said that sounded nice.
I didn't know then that she was planning to sell my house while I was gone. I didn't know that she'd already found the buyers. I didn't know that while I was away trying to spend time with my daughter, she was destroying the only home I had left. The vacation was terrible. Ellen seemed tense the entire time. Michael was his usual dismissive self. And I spent the week feeling like I was watching my daughter from behind glass. Like I was looking at someone I used to know, but didn't recognize anymore. On the last day of the vacation, Ellen got a phone call. She stepped away to take it, but I could hear her voice through the thin walls of the hotel. She was talking about closing dates and final signatures and wire transfers. She was using words like profit margin and financial strategy. She was talking about money, my house. When she came back to the room, she was smiling. She asked me if I'd enjoyed the vacation. I said yes, but I was lying. I was lying because I already knew. Somewhere deep in my bones, I already understood what she'd done. When we got back to the house, when I found that moving truck in my driveway, that was Ellen finally telling me what she'd already done. That was my daughter showing me that the person I thought she was, the daughter I raised to be kind and honest and strong, that person doesn't exist. That person was never real. Have you ever cried alone so no one could see? Just hit like I'll understand. Because that's what I did. I went to my room that night, my room in the house that wasn't mine anymore, and I cried. Not out of anger, not out of fury, but out of a profound sadness that my own daughter had become someone capable of doing this to me. That I had failed, somehow, in teaching her the difference between having and being, between money and love. I called James, my lawyer, the next morning, and that's when everything started to unravel. That's when I discovered that the forged signatures were just the beginning. That's when I found out there were documents I didn't know about. Financial instruments I'd never seen. Bank accounts opened in my name without my knowledge. A house that had been sold with my signature on the paperwork, but that signature wasn't mine. My daughter hadn't just sold my house. She had systematically stolen from me in ways that I was only beginning to understand. And there was something else. Something that James discovered while reviewing the paperwork. Something that changed everything. Something that proved that Ellen's betrayal ran far deeper than a single act of greed. Something that suggested she'd been planning this for years. What I didn't know yet was that there were other victims. That Michael had done this before. That my daughter was part of something bigger. Something darker. Something that would force me to confront not just her betrayal, but my own complicity in enabling it. The lawyer's office is cold. That's the first thing I notice. Not the diplomas on the wall, or the mahogany desk, or the way the afternoon light cuts through the blinds at precise angles. Just the cold. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones and reminds you that you're somewhere important.
Somewhere permanent.
Somewhere where truth cannot be denied. Ellen sits across from me. Her lawyer, a sharp-faced woman in her 50s, sits next to her. James, my lawyer, sits next to me. And between us is a table covered with documents. Documents that tell a story that Ellen didn't know anyone would ever read. The judge isn't here yet. This is a preliminary hearing. This is where we present our evidence to determine whether the case will move forward. This is where the truth starts to break through the surface. James stands up and speaks first. He explains, in careful legal language, that the sale of the property was fraudulent, that Dorothy's signature was forged on multiple documents, that the deed transfer was illegal, that the entire transaction violates state law and should be voided. Ellen's lawyer stands up and says that Dorothy gave her power of attorney, that Ellen was acting in her client's best interest, that the sale was meant to help her mother. And then James says something that changes everything. I'd like to introduce into evidence a series of documents that suggest this was a coordinated scheme. I'd like to present evidence that shows Ellen Richardson and her husband, Michael Richardson, have engaged in similar transactions with at least 3 other elderly individuals over the past 7 years. The room goes quiet. Ellen's face goes pale. Her lawyer whispers something to her urgently, but Ellen just shakes her head. James pulls out a folder. He shows the court documents from 3 other cases. Cases where elderly parents had sold their homes without their knowledge. Cases where signatures had been forged. Cases where adult children had used their parents' power of attorney for purposes the parents never agreed to. Your Honor, James says, I believe we're looking at a pattern of elder financial abuse. And I believe Michael Richardson is the architect of this scheme, with Ellen Richardson as his willing accomplice. Ellen starts to cry. Not quiet tears. Real, loud sobs that echo through the cold office. That's not true, she says. That's not, I wasn't. Quiet, her lawyer instructs, but Ellen is already falling apart. The judge looks at her with an expression I can't quite read. It's not sympathy. It's something colder than that. It's judgment. James continues. He presents bank records showing that after each sale, money was transferred from joint accounts to accounts that belonged solely to Michael. He shows that Ellen's business was failing, that she and Michael were in significant debt, that the house sales were Michael's solution to their financial problems. And there's more, James says. He pulls out a recording. He says, we obtained this recording from Michael Richardson's office. It was recorded by his business partner, who became concerned about the nature of their operations. The judge nods for James to play the recording. Michael's voice comes through the speakers. He's talking to someone about the next target. He's talking about finding elderly people with valuable assets and adult children who are financially vulnerable. He's talking about using power of attorney documents to transfer properties. He's talking about profit margins and how much money they've made. And then Ellen's voice comes through. She says, I don't feel good about doing this to my mother. Michael says, your mother will be fine. She'll have money. We're not stealing from her. We're just redistributing her assets in a way that makes sense for everyone. Ellen says, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Michael says, you can and you will. Because if you don't, I'll make sure you regret it. The recording ends. The silence that follows is absolute. It's the silence of a daughter realizing that her mother is listening to her admit her complicity in a crime. It's the silence of a scheme being exposed. Have you ever spoken the truth and still been blamed? Tap heart symbol if that pain feels familiar. Because in this moment, I'm not angry.
I'm heartbroken.
My daughter did this to me. My daughter chose money over me. My daughter chose a man who threatened her over her own mother. Ellen's lawyer stands up and says, Your Honor, my client was coerced by her husband. She was acting under duress.
Was she? The judge asks.
Because the recording suggests she had concerns, but chose to continue anyway. The recording suggests she was making a choice to defraud her own mother. The judge turns to look at Ellen. Ms. Richardson, did you forge your mother's signature? Ellen doesn't answer. She just cries. I'm going to take that as a yes, the judge says. And based on the evidence presented, I'm finding that there is sufficient cause to move this case forward. The sale of the property is hereby declared fraudulent and void. The property is to be returned to its original owners, or, given that new owners are now occupying it, monetary compensation equal to the current market value of the property will be ordered. The judge pauses. He looks directly at Ellen. Furthermore, he says, I'm referring this case to the district attorney for criminal investigation. Ms. Richardson and Mr. Richardson will be investigated for elder financial abuse, forgery, and fraud. This hearing is adjourned. Ellen starts sobbing openly. Her lawyer is trying to talk to her, but Ellen isn't listening.
She's looking at me.
And in her eyes, I see something I've never seen before. I see shame. Real, profound shame. I don't smile. I don't feel victorious. I just feel sad. I feel the weight of knowing that my daughter did this. That my daughter is capable of this. That the person I raised made choices that led her here. Ellen tries to approach me as we're leaving the judge's chambers. Mom, she says. Mom, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Don't, I say quietly.
I hold up my hand.
Don't say anything right now. But you don't understand. Michael, he made me. Ellen, I say, and my voice is steady even though I'm falling apart inside. You forged my signature.
You stole from me.
And then you lied about it. That wasn't Michael. That was you. You made those choices. When family turns against you, the silence hurts more than the words. Comment true if you've lived this. Because the silence between me and my daughter now, it's different from any silence I've ever known. It's the silence of a relationship that cannot be repaired. It's the silence of a mother who has to accept that her daughter is someone she doesn't recognize. Ruth is waiting for me outside the courthouse. She doesn't say anything. She just takes my arm and walks with me to my car. We drive in silence to her house. We sit in her kitchen and I cry. Not tears of anger. Not tears of vindication. Just the quiet tears of a mother mourning her daughter. What happens now? Ruth asks gently. Now, I say, I get my house back. Or the money equivalent. I get what was taken from me. But, Ruth asks, because she hears the hesitation in my voice. But I don't get my daughter back, I say. That's what I've lost that money can't replace. Ruth reaches across the table and takes my hand. She doesn't say anything, but I can feel what she's saying. I can feel her telling me that I did the right thing. That speaking my truth was the right choice, even though it cost me my relationship with my daughter. That night, I sit in my living room, the living room that James is fighting to keep mine, and I look at the photographs on the walls. Pictures of Ellen as a baby. Pictures of her growing up. Pictures of all the moments when I believed that my love was enough to protect her from becoming a person who would do this. But love isn't always enough. Sometimes, despite a mother's best efforts, a daughter makes choices. And those choices can destroy everything. My phone rings. It's the new owners of the house. They've been informed that the sale was fraudulent. They're angry. They're threatening legal action. They want to know what they're supposed to do about the fact that they don't actually own the house they've moved into. I tell them I'm sorry. I tell them it's not my fault. I tell them they should direct their anger toward my daughter and her husband, not toward me. But I hear the bitterness in their voice. I understand that my fight for justice has created victims. Innocent people who didn't know they were buying a house that didn't actually belong to the seller. And I have to sit with that uncomfortable truth that sometimes, when we fight for ourselves, we hurt people who didn't deserve to be hurt. Sometimes all you have left is your dignity. Share this if you'd still choose respect over riches. Because that's what I'm left with. My dignity. My name cleared. My property returned or compensated. But the cost of losing my daughter, I'm not sure it was worth the price of winning this case. The next morning, I find a letter in my mailbox. It's from Ellen. Her handwriting is shaky. Her words are broken. She writes that she knows she can't ask for forgiveness. She writes that she understands she's destroyed our relationship. She writes that Michael is already distancing himself from her, that he's blaming her for everything, that she's alone now. She writes that she's facing criminal charges. She writes that she's going to lose everything. And at the end of the letter, she writes something that makes me cry all over again. She writes, "You were right to fight for yourself, Mom. And I hate you for it. I hate you because you made me face what I've become. I hate you because I can't blame you for what happened. I hate you because I love you, and I can't forgive myself for what I did to you. If this moment made your heart ache, please like this. For every mother who is never heard. Because I was heard. The court heard me. The judge heard me. The world heard my truth. But my daughter heard me too. And that hearing has destroyed her. And I don't know how to live with that knowledge. James calls me that afternoon. He says that the case is moving forward quickly. He says that based on the evidence, Ellen and Michael are likely to face significant prison time. He says that Dorothy will recover her property or its monetary equivalent. He says that justice will be served. But as I sit in my kitchen, holding Ellen's letter in my trembling hands, I realize that justice is more complicated than I thought. Justice is getting what was taken from you. But justice is also losing something you never expected to lose. Justice is the truth being told, but truth doesn't always heal. Sometimes it just opens wounds that will never close. I look at Ellen's letter one more time, and I make a decision that will change everything that comes next. A decision that no one expects. A decision that will force me to choose between being right and being a mother. The courtroom is silent in the way that courtrooms become silent when something momentous is about to happen. It's a silence that holds breath, that holds consequence, that holds the weight of decisions that will echo through the rest of someone's life. The judge sits elevated above everything. Ellen sits at the defendant's table with her lawyer. She looks smaller than she did at the preliminary hearing. Diminished. Like someone who's been slowly erased by the weight of what she's done. Michael is not here. He fled the state 3 weeks ago. The police are looking for him. But today is not about Michael. Today is about Ellen. Today is about a daughter who chose greed over her own mother. James stands up and presents the case. He walks through the evidence methodically. The forged signatures. The recordings. The pattern with the other victims. The bank records showing how money moved from joint accounts to accounts controlled solely by Michael. He builds a picture of deliberate, calculated fraud. Ellen's new lawyer, she's had to hire a public defender because she can't afford private representation anymore, tries to argue that Ellen was coerced, that she was acting under her husband's threats, that she deserves sympathy, not punishment. The judge listens. He takes notes. He doesn't show any emotion on his face. Then the judge asks Ellen if she has anything she wants to say before sentencing. Ellen stands up. Her hands are shaking. She looks at me, and then she looks at the judge. "Your Honor," she says, her voice very small, "I know I can't undo what I did. I know I can't take it back. I did something terrible to my mother. I betrayed her trust. I stole from her. And I know that no amount of apologizing will fix that." She pauses. She's crying now, tears streaming down her face. "I want to say," she continues, "that none of this was my mother's fault. She loved me. She gave me everything. And I threw it away because I wanted more. Because I let a man convince me that my own mother was an obstacle to my happiness. And now I understand. Now I see that what I lost when I betrayed her is far more valuable than anything I could have taken from her." She sits back down. Her lawyer puts a hand on her shoulder, but Ellen just stares straight ahead. The judge looks at her for a long moment. Then he says, "Ellen Richardson, you have pleaded guilty to forgery, fraud, and elder financial abuse. You have admitted to deliberately stealing from your own mother. And while I understand that you were influenced by your husband, you made the choice to continue. You made the choice to forge documents. You made the choice to sell your mother's home without her consent." The judge pauses. "I am sentencing you to 4 years in state prison. During that time, you will participate in counseling and rehabilitation programs. Upon your release, you will be on probation for 5 years, during which time you will make restitution to your mother in the amount of $250,000. The judge turns to me. He says, "The property sale is declared void and fraudulent. Ms. Dorothy Sullivan will be returned to ownership of her home, or, given that it is currently occupied by new owners, will receive monetary compensation in the amount of the current market value of the property, which is $1,200,000. He brings the gavel down. The sound echoes through the courtroom. Ellen doesn't react. She just sits there, staring at nothing, as if the words have finally broken something inside her that can't be fixed. The bailiff stands up and tells Ellen to stand.
She stands. She doesn't look at me.
She doesn't say anything. She just lets herself be led away. If seeing truth when gives you hope, tap heart symbol so more people see this. Because I have won. I have my house back. I have been awarded justice.
The court has sided with me.
The truth has prevailed. But I don't feel like I've won. I feel like I've lost something I can never get back. Ruth is waiting for me outside the courthouse. She puts her arm around me, and I lean into her and I cry. Not tears of joy. Not tears of vindication. Just tears. The tears of a mother who has had to watch her daughter be taken away in handcuffs. We drive to my house, the house that is legally mine again, and we sit on the porch in silence. The house looks the same. The new owners have maintained it well. But it's not my home anymore. My home died the day Ellen forged my signature. What will you do? Ruth asks. I don't know, I say. I don't know if I can live here. Every room has memories of Ellen. Every corner reminds me of who she was supposed to be. Ruth nods. She understands without me having to explain. That night, I sit alone in my house and I do something I didn't expect to do. I write a letter to Ellen. I don't mail it. I just write it. I write about how much I love her. I write about how disappointed I am in her. I write about how I wish I could go back in time and make different choices as a mother. I write about how I wonder if there was something I could have done differently that might have prevented this. For every mother who's been betrayed by her own blood, share this. Because that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about my role in this. I'm thinking about whether I gave Ellen too much. Whether I enabled her entitlement. Whether I failed her by not teaching her the value of what we had. The next morning I call James. I tell him that I want to establish a fund. I tell him that I want to use the money from the settlement to help other victims of elder financial abuse. I tell him that I want to create something good from this tragedy. James asks me if I'm sure. He asks me if I want to keep the money for myself. I tell him that I don't need it. I tell him that I have what I need. That what I need cannot be bought. James helps me set up the Dorothy Sullivan Foundation for Elder Financial Justice. I donate $800,000 from my settlement. The money will go toward legal defense for elderly people who've been exploited. The money will go toward education and awareness. The money will go toward helping other families avoid the pain that my family has endured. When the foundation is formally established, my story becomes public. Local news outlets pick it up. National news outlets follow. Suddenly, I'm being called a hero. People are telling me I'm brave. People are telling me I'm strong. But I don't feel brave. I don't feel strong. I feel like I've lost my daughter, and I'm trying to make sense of that loss by helping other people. A week after Ellen's sentencing, I receive a visitor. It's one of the other victims, a man named Harold whose daughter and son-in-law had also defrauded him. Harold is in his 80s. He's alone. His daughter is in prison. He's lost almost everything. But he came to thank me. He came to tell me that my foundation was helping him navigate his case. He came to tell me that seeing me stand up had given him the courage to do the same. I cry when he says this. I cry because I realize that my daughter's betrayal has somehow become a catalyst for helping others. Sometimes justice takes time, but it always comes. Comment true if you believe that. Because justice has come. Ellen is in prison. I have my house back. The truth has been exposed. The system has worked. But the cost has been my relationship with my daughter. And I'm not sure that any amount of justice is worth that price. Harold and I sit on my porch, and he tells me about his daughter. He tells me about how she started out the same way Ellen did, just wanting more money, just needing help, just one small decision that led to another and another and another, until suddenly she was a criminal. He tells me that he's forgiven her, that he visits her in prison, that he's trying to help her find her way back to being a person he recognizes. Do you think she'll change? I ask him. I don't know, Harold says. But I know that if I don't forgive her, I'll spend the rest of my life angry. And I'm too old for that. I'm too tired for that. I think about his words after he leaves. I think about forgiveness. I think about whether forgiveness means accepting what someone did. I think about whether I can forgive Ellen and still hold her accountable. They thought she was weak. She showed them what real strength looks like. Because I am strong. I stood up for myself. I fought for my justice. I did what needed to be done. But strength, I'm learning, is not the same as invulnerability. Strength is not the same as not feeling pain. Strength is being able to do what's right even when it destroys you. James calls me a week later. He has news. The new homeowners, the innocent people who bought my house, they're suing for damages. They're claiming fraud. They're angry that they purchased a property with a fraudulent title. They're seeking compensation. I understand their anger. I understand that my victory has become their loss. And I realize that justice is not always clean. Justice is not always simple. Justice sometimes creates new victims while avenging old ones. I tell James that I want to settle with them. I tell him that I'll use part of my settlement to make them whole. I tell him that I can't live knowing that innocent people are suffering because of my daughter's crime. James is surprised. He says, "Dorothy, they're not your responsibility. Your daughter is responsible for their loss." "I know," I say, "but I'm the only one who can help them. Ellen is in prison. Michael is gone. The insurance company is denying claims. So I can help, and I think I should." I settle with the new homeowners for $200,000. It's money that was supposed to help me rebuild. But instead, I'm using it to help people I don't even know. As I sign the settlement papers, I realize something. I realize that by holding on to my anger, by holding on to my need for complete justice, I was just creating more pain in the world. I was creating more victims. And even though my daughter is the one who created the situation, I have the power to stop the chain of harm. I sign the papers, and I sit in James's office, and I cry. Not because I've lost more money, but because I've realized that victory doesn't look the way I thought it would. Victory doesn't look like winning. Victory looks like choosing compassion even when you have every right to choose revenge. Justice was done. Ellen received her sentence. I received my settlement. The truth was exposed. But as I sit in my house, the house that is legally mine but doesn't feel like home anymore, I realize that justice and peace are two completely different things. The question I'm left with is not whether I won. The question is whether winning was worth the price of losing my daughter. And I still don't have an answer to that question. All I know is that I'm 72 years old, and I'm sitting in a house that feels empty, and I'm wondering if a mother's heart can ever truly forgive the child she raised for the choice to betray her. 3 years later, I wake to the sound of birds singing outside my window. I know that sounds like something from a story, but it's real. Every morning at dawn, before the world gets loud, there's this moment where the cardinals that live in the trees outside my cottage remind me that I'm alive, that I survived, that the world keeps turning even when you think it might stop. My cottage, not my house. I sold the big house, the one that Ellen tried to steal, to the family who'd been living in it. I sold it to them for a fair price, and I helped them with their legal fees so they could formalize the ownership properly. They send me Christmas cards now. They invite me to their barbecues. They don't see me as the woman who stole their house. They see me as the woman who gave it back to them. I'm 75 years old now. My hair is completely gray, and I've stopped trying to hide it. I've started wearing the clothes I actually want to wear instead of the clothes I think I should wear. I've started living the life that I want to live, not the life that I think I'm supposed to live. The cottage is small, just 4 rooms, but it's mine in a way that the big house never was. There are no ghosts here. No memories of raising Ellen. No photographs of her on the walls. Those are stored in boxes in the closet. Here, there's just me. Just quiet. Just peace. Ruth comes over on Tuesday mornings. We have coffee on the porch, and we watch the world wake up. We've been friends for 45 years now, and in many ways, she's been more of a family to me than Ellen ever was. After everything happened, Ruth was the one who stayed. Ruth was the one who listened without judgment. Ruth was the one who held my hand when I needed someone to hold it. This morning Ruth brought something. A letter. She hands it to me, and I can see it's been opened. I know immediately what it is. It's from Ellen. I haven't seen or spoken to Ellen in 3 years. Not since the trial. Not since she went to prison. It came to my house, Ruth says gently. She must have looked at my address. I opened it to make sure it was something you should see. I hold the letter in my trembling hands. My name is written on the envelope in Ellen's handwriting. I know this handwriting. I've seen it on birthday cards and thank you notes and grocery lists my entire adult life. I open it slowly. The letter is long. Several pages. Ellen's handwriting is different now, shakier, more deliberate. Like, she's having to think about each letter before she writes it. She writes about prison. She writes about the women she's met there. She writes about the therapy sessions and the classes, and the time she spent thinking about what she did. She writes about how every day she thinks about me. She writes about how every day she wishes she could go back in time and make different choices. But then she writes something that makes me cry. She writes, I've been reading about the foundation you created. I've been reading about the people you've helped. And I know you did it with money that came from my crime against you. You took what I did to you, and you turned it into good. You took my betrayal, and you turned it into healing for other people. And I don't understand how you can do that. I don't understand how you can love like that, especially when that love is being directed toward people who need it, when I'm the one who hurt you the most. She continues, I'm not asking you to forgive me, Mom. I'm not asking you to visit. I'm not asking you to write back. I just want you to know that I see you. I see what you did. And I'm trying to understand how a mother can be hurt so badly by her daughter and still choose to spend her life helping other people. I'm trying to understand that kind of love. Because I don't think I have it in me. And that scares me. I sit on my porch with Ruth, reading Ellen's letter, and I cry. Not the angry tears of someone who's been betrayed, but the sad, quiet tears of a mother who understands that her daughter is suffering, and that she can't fix it for her. If you've ever healed after heartbreak, tap heart symbol so I know I'm not alone. Because healing after this kind of betrayal is a journey that never really ends. There are still days when I wake up and I'm angry at Ellen. There are still days when I think about what she did and I feel the sting of it. But those days are becoming fewer and further between. Those days are becoming bearable. What I've learned over these 3 years is that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending the betrayal didn't happen. Healing means learning to live with the scar. Healing means understanding what the scar taught me. Healing means being willing to move forward even though you carry the weight of the past. I've started volunteering with the Dorothy Sullivan Foundation. I help elderly people navigate cases of financial exploitation. I sit with people who are experiencing what I experienced. I listen to their stories. I help them understand that what happened to them was not their fault, that they are not stupid or weak or deserving of what was done to them. One woman I met, Maria, she reminded me so much of myself. Her son had taken advantage of her trust. He'd manipulated her into giving him money. He'd isolated her from her family. And she came to me broken and ashamed. I held her hand and I told her something that I had to learn through tremendous pain. Maria, the fact that you loved your son doesn't make you foolish. The fact that you trusted him doesn't make you weak. The fact that he took advantage of that love and trust makes him someone who chose to betray you. But it doesn't change the fact that your love was real. Your trust was real. And you have nothing to be ashamed of. Maria cried when I said that. And I cried with her. Because I was speaking to myself as much as I was speaking to her. Comment strong if you've ever had to stand alone and rebuild. Because I have stood alone. After the trial ended, after the money was settled, after the foundation was established, I had to learn how to live alone. I had to learn how to be Dorothy, not Ellen's mother. I had to learn who I was when I wasn't defined by my relationship to my daughter. I took classes. I traveled. I volunteered. I read books. I spent time with Ruth. I learned how to cook new recipes. I learned how to paint. I learned how to be someone other than a mother whose daughter betrayed her. And somewhere in all of that, I found peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of purpose. Not the forgetting of what happened, but the integration of it into a life that has meaning. Last month, Ellen was released from prison. She served 2.5 years before being released on good behavior. She's on probation. She's required to attend counseling. She's required to make monthly payments toward her restitution. She called me the day she got out. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up the phone.
"Hi, Mom," she said.
Her voice sounded small. Broken.
"Hi, Ellen," I said.
I didn't know what else to say. "I'm out," she said. I'm trying to figure out what comes next." I was quiet for a long moment. Then I said, "I'm glad you're out, Ellen. I'm glad you're safe. Can I?" She started. "Can I come see you sometime?" Not as a daughter asking for forgiveness, just as someone who's trying to understand who she is now. I thought about my answer for a long time. I thought about the pain she'd caused me. I thought about the months I spent in anger and grief. I thought about the choice I had to make, to hold on to my anger forever or to try to find a way forward. "Yes," I said finally. "You can come see me. But Ellen, I need you to understand something. We can't go back to what we were. We can't pretend this didn't happen. But maybe we can try to build something new. Something honest. Something based on truth instead of the things we tell each other to make everything easier." Ellen started crying on the phone. Real tears. And I realized that my daughter is trying. She's trying to be better. She's trying to understand what she did. She's trying to find her way back to being a person she can live with. We had coffee last week. It was awkward. It was painful. She looked at me and she said, "I don't expect you to forgive me." And I said, "I know, but I'm working on forgiving you anyway. Not for your sake, but for mine. Because I don't want to spend the rest of my life being angry at you." Grandmas deserve respect and love. Share this so everyone remembers that. And I do deserve respect. I deserve love. I deserve to be treated well. But I also deserve to be a grandmother to my future grandchildren. I deserve to have a daughter, even a flawed one. I deserve to have family, even when that family has hurt me. We're not at a place where everything is fixed. We're not at a place where the betrayal doesn't matter. But we're at a place where we're trying, where we're both willing to look at what happened and try to move forward. Ellen is living with her mother. She's working at a nonprofit that helps elder abuse survivors. She's attending counseling. She's making her monthly restitution payments. She's trying to rebuild her life in a way that honors the pain she caused. This morning, she called and asked if I wanted to have dinner with her. Just the two of us.
I said yes.
And I'm nervous. And I'm hopeful. And I'm terrified that history might repeat itself. But I'm also learning something that I never knew before. I'm learning that forgiveness doesn't mean trusting someone with the same level of access to your life that you gave them before. I'm learning that you can forgive someone and still have boundaries. I'm learning that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering and choosing to love anyway. If this story touched your heart, like and comment to honor your own journey. Because I know that not everyone listening to this has lived through a betrayal by family. But I know that everyone has felt hurt. Everyone has felt disappointed by the people they love. Everyone has wondered if they can move forward when the foundation of their life has been shaken. And I'm here to tell you that you can. That healing is possible. That even after tremendous pain, even after betrayal by the people closest to you, even after losing something precious, you can still find joy. You can still find purpose. You can still find peace. I look at my cottage. I look at my quiet life. I look at my friendship with Ruth. I look at my work with the foundation. I look at this tentative new relationship with Ellen. And I realize that I've been given something precious. I've been given a second chance. Not a second chance with Ellen, exactly, but a second chance at understanding what matters. Sometimes, even after betrayal, love still finds a way. Not the love that doesn't ask questions. Not the love that enables harmful behavior, but the love that sees someone clearly, all their flaws, all their mistakes, all their capacity for both harm and growth, and chooses to engage with them anyway. What would you do if life gave you a second chance to reclaim peace? Because that's what I've been given. I've been given the chance to decide who I want to be, to decide what kind of life I want to live. To decide whether I want to hold on to my hurt or whether I want to build something new. I'm choosing to build something new. It's not easy. It's not simple. It's messy and complicated and sometimes painful. But it's real.
And it's mine.
And that's enough. My daughter sold my house. But she couldn't sell my spirit. She couldn't sell my ability to love. She couldn't sell my capacity to forgive. And in the end, those things, the things that can't be bought or sold, those are the only things that truly matter. Sometimes the greatest strength is not in holding on. Sometimes the greatest strength is in learning to let go, learning to forgive, learning to try again, even when the person you're forgiving is the person who hurt you most.